All right, well, here we go. This is the audio commentary for Lit. I'm director Brian Maurer,
I'm Nathan Pearson, assistant director.
and we're going to sit here and entertain you by talking about our film that we have here. So,
If you're watching this, that means you bought the DVD. You like the film enough to buy the DVD, and we thank you.
yes, and for some reason you're interested enough in listening to our voices over the film, which, I mean, that's dedication right there.
If worse comes to worse, I'll go home and watch this.
Yeah, I mean, we want something for, somebody out there has got to be interested. So
How things
we
are
ended up
going.
using my kitchen for sets pretty much everywhere we could find. We decided to use because finding locations that we could shoot at any time was pretty difficult. So in this case, we kind of lucked out that we had a kitchen that actually worked out pretty well.
Mhm. It's one of the downsides of having zero budget, is that you really can't rent any places out. So there's one or two scenes we're not exactly happy with the location, but it's what we could work with.
Yeah, that's, I think, as a filmmaker, whenever you're kind of starting your production, finding out where you're going to shoot and how you're going to shoot, it's pretty damn important. And working with what you have, it can be a vice and it can be a blessing at the same time. So I think in this case, it turned out really well because the kitchen, we wanted to start somewhere homey, somewhere where you could really get to know the characters, and a meal in the kitchen seemed to be the best way to do it.
Mhm. And coming up here in a second is going to be one of those rooms that we're not too happy with because the color of the walls, but
Well, you did say that Dr. Lin was, how did you put it?
Yeah.
Unbelievably
We actually had to shoot this scene
every possible way.
6 times, I think. It really was a lot. I mean, it was the first scene that we shot in the entire film. Not the first scene in the script, though. The very first scene was actually cut in post-production. But this is the first scene that we shot. And ironically, the first run-through was the one that we actually used. And here is that wonderfully green room that we ended up having to use for Jeer's office. But it actually, it turned out all right. The color wasn't necessarily something we were looking for, but the cluttery sort of lived-in mess really ended up turning out really well, and we really like to thank
Thanks for coming in on such short notice.
Cheryl Black.
Cheryl Black for allowing us to use her office like this. So,
And I will say one thing about Jim here, who plays Dr. Jeer. He was the very first person we casted. We needed somebody. He came in to read for Keith, actually, and just the look and his voice before he even left the door. We're like, "Yep, we've got our Jeer."
yeah. Casting was a very interesting experience. And when all 3 of the men came in, we pretty much knew right away that we had our cast. We were really concerned from the start that it would be really hard to find actors that fit in the age range that we were looking for, because right away we had a bunch of students, and we were like,
For those who don't know, we shot this in Columbia, Missouri, which is a college-based town, and we were dealing with basically college connections. And even as we were writing this, it was like, how are we going to find people to fill these roles?
yeah, and also not just settling, and we really lucked out in coming across 3 really talented actors that really brought our characters right off the page, to use that cliche term. Especially Michael
Who plays Keith.
He plays Keith. He did an excellent job in portraying the character, and throughout the entire film, you can really see that he paid attention to the despair that kind of grew across the length of his semester here, and kind of grew with the students. So kudos to him, and Jeer as well, or Jim. Excuse me. Jim did an excellent job as well. This particular scene, he was. I think we shot this third in the sequence of his stuff. And,
that whole couple months just all start blurring together.
But he really had a handle on his character at that point, and we really felt he did a great job.
Yeah, we cannot thank Michael near enough Michael and Dan, who play Keith and Carrie respectively, they the dedication that we got from them, because we were shooting long nights, long days, and they knew they weren't getting paid.
Yeah.
So we cannot express enough thanks for the dedication of everybody on this project.
Yeah. Now, this
Her course, yes.
we had a little
It's not
trouble
an ideal solution.
pretty much in every scene, but
it keeps
with
you here.
with getting all the
And more
lines
importantly, it
perfect,
keeps
and
both
actually,
you
every
off
director
the
I'm
back
sure
of
does a little bit
Dr.
of field editing
I
with,
don't
with
like
some
to
of the
deal with him
lines, and
any more
I
than
think
you
that the coaching that we did here with
Your
Jim and
outbursts
Michael,
don't help either of our cases.
they really were able to bring things together.
Yes, it is.
I don't think we cut too many lines
This
in
was
this
the
sequence
only
from the
time
original
this course
draft
could
of
be
the
scheduled
screenplay,
without
but
further conflicts for our students.
I think with their kind of back and forth, their physical movements, I think they did a really good job.
Mhm.
Especially since we're in the first 10 minutes of the film, it's really important that the audience connects with Keith and maybe not understand necessarily his frustration with teaching what he considers to be children, but his frustration in being thrown into a situation that he has no control over.
One of the interesting comments we had at a screening that we did the other day of this was a woman who said that she loved the character of Keith because at first she saw him just as kind of a dick. I think I can say that on the commentary.
Yeah,
right?
I'm not going back, so it's being printed as we speak.
But she basically said that she did not like the character, that he's a bit of an ass.
Yeah.
But as the movie progressed, she found herself liking him more and more until at the end of it, she just absolutely loved his character. And I think that's a compliment I take.
I'd like to comment on the campus here. Really pretty campus. I was a student here 100 years ago or whatever, and there's a lot of really great outdoor visuals. The campus also doubles as a botanical garden, and we were really lucky and pleased to have the university's blessing in using their facilities and using their grounds to shoot on. So yeah, now we're here in the classroom, and the classroom scenes were both really fun to shoot and difficult at the same time. We had
nerve-wracking, to be exact.
Yeah, we had a lot of trouble with the lighting situation. This first one we really didn't have too much of a problem, but the second and third, it seemed like it got progressively difficult because we wanted to portray the classroom in a different way each time. Now, this first one, this distance shot that we're using, it was on a dolly. All of this is on a homemade dolly. That's how we pulled off this kind of smooth panning stuff. And then later when we get to it, the second and the third one, the second one's all handheld because we wanted that kind of shaky feel to it.
Everything was in turmoil at that point.
Yeah. Now we're already 8 or 9 minutes into the film, and we started introducing everybody to the secondary characters here, and we really wanted to establish from the very beginning that Keith kind of treats his students, almost as if they're children, but he also wants to give them a chance, and that's sort of where he kind of gives power here to Ashley, and who is played by Alexis, and she did an excellent job. And we really wanted to set up how Keith reacts with his best friend Carrie, but also how he reacts to the class as a whole, as if the class itself is a character. And we hope we pulled that off fairly well.
Something he was forced into doing, but does it in his own flair.
Yeah. I had a good time. I had a really good time filming these classroom scenes. Kelly did an excellent job doing the boom microphone work for us.
Rick.
Yeah. Our good friend Rick with the bad mustache. Was that even in the script?
No.
Yeah,
we
right.
originally had bad haircut guy, and we didn't have anybody there with the bad haircut, and we looked at Rick and we're like, Rick, you're bad mustache man.
Now, Rick, if you're listening to this, Rick, we'll take you out for lunch. But
And in fact, Brian and I were talking that he wants to start a running joke that in all of his films there need to be at least one close-up shot of Rick.
And so far it's true. He played M. Night Shyamalan in our parody film of The Happening, but that's a different audio commentary. So, Wale did a good job, cast as Jason Klein. We had a bit of a scheduling issue, so we tried to get all of the classroom scenes to work with all the students, and we found that it was really difficult since we had 4 students playing major roles, and they all had other commitments.
Full-time students.
Full-time students. Some of them were involved in other productions, theater productions at the time. Steven was involved in Twelfth Night. Twelfth Night, yeah.
I think.
And you'd be surprised. So, for all you filmmakers who are wanting to put something like this together, if you're going to need extras or you've got a situation where you're working with students, scheduling way in advance and making sure that everybody is able to stick to that is definitely a huge thing you're going to want to pay attention to. We had a little bit of trouble. I mean, you can't really tell, obviously, because this is the first classroom scene, that we could fill up this classroom and make it look full. It was really important to us that there weren't like 7 people in the classroom. I mean, of course, being students, we all know that there are classroom situations where there are only 10 people or whatever, but in this situation, we wanted to give Keat a full class to deal with, and finding 20 to 25 people that are willing to sit in a room and not really say anything while we're busy just filming them, watching. We'd like to thank those people that were able to show up, and they did a great job. That's Wale's wife, yes?
I think so. No, she wasn't there that night. That was her friend that he brought.
Right.
Yeah.
Fail on the Brian's
Well,
part there.
I would like to say this is actually the second time that we attempted to shoot this scene. The first time, the room was awful, fluorescent lights. There was one light that wasn't.
It was it was blowing.
Swinging.
It was as if there was a draft, and this huge 20-pound light just swung back and forth, but there was no wind. We don't even know why it was doing it, but we decided that it was way too open,
way too bland.
Way too bland. So we found this. We went around campus and tried to find, a smaller room that didn't look like a hospital room, and we came across this room that had, these wooden desks with wooden paneling along the side. We were able to light it the way we wanted it to, so that it would look like it's at night. I mean, we did shoot them all at night, but we wanted to make sure that this was a night class.
We were doing some marketing for an event that we attempted to do with this that failed horribly. We'll come back to that later. But I was doing some marketing for it, and I walked into the room, and I went to write on the board, and I looked around, and I was like,
this is pretty
jackpot.
Nice. Yeah, this is a pretty good room.
I called Brian, and I was like, Brian, we need to go check this room out. He's like, oh, all right. And we show up the next day, and he's like, we found
this
it.
Is it.
This is it.
This is the room. Yeah, scouting, that's a very important part in your pre-production, like this one right here. We wanted to make sure that we had a house for the people to live in. It's kind of hard to pick a house front that looks like where the actors actually are. In this case, that exterior is not the same home as the interior, and that was actually, I think, the last thing I shot. The very last thing I shot was that exterior, and you can really. It really helps to go and look out where you're trying to shoot and find these spots. Like I said, earlier with the kitchen, is like you just need to have it.
This house right here is actually Dan's, who plays Carrie here, and we were fortunate enough to let him.
He let us.
Shoot there.
Yeah, all of our actors were very accommodating. They were all very helpful, especially being able to shoot in their homes. So we very much thank them for that.
Yeah, whenever we had our first meeting, our first script reading through all of this, we told everybody that we wanted to have fun, have a good product, but we also had a lot of issues with past productions that we had where people more or less kind of flaked out towards the end, and we said, if you're going to be a part of this, we want a good work ethic, good dedication, and they excelled beyond that.
Now this is where I'm gonna.
I know.
Okay. Now you can't see it, but there's me bowling right there, and you can't see it because I had to zoom in because we had some logo issue, but I did nail the strike there. And we shot this a couple of times, and ironically, of course I chose that one. It happened to be the best, but I also get a strike. But if you watch here,
In the background,
Nathan bowls.
That's me.
And
I knew it immediately.
he knew it right away, and gutter.
The whole bowling aspect comes from Brian and I. We have a ritual there. We go bowling at least once a week.
Yes, our film production office was the bowling alley. Now this isn't the bowling alley that we generally go to.
But I make up for my gutter here.
Yeah. So we would like to thank
Claude Hawkins
from
the Fulton Bowling Alley
for allowing us to use his bowling alley. He actually opened it up
There's Brian and I again.
early so that we could use it, and we actually brought a few extras as well as the classroom, as the class students. They come in later, but they're actually bowling in the background right now.
Yeah, this is actually shot at like 10 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah, it was pretty early.
With maybe 8 or 9 people there, and we just made it sound like it was a full bowling alley.
So I think at this point, we're sort of hinting at Lorna's character, and in the original project, we had a much larger plan in store for this project, and we wanted to introduce all the characters when they were gonna pop onto screen. But in this case, Lorna's character doesn't come in for quite some time, so we wanted to make sure that the audience was aware of her and her importance. And at this point, the audience is thinking that Lorna,
Girlfriend or wife.
Girlfriend, well, yeah, wife, and we're glad we were able to turn that.
We try to put the wool over your eyes, if you will.
Yeah. Now, this is a scene that we had different music to. Actually, I don't think there's any music to it right now, but there used to be some music to it. We were very graciously helped out by Anthony, and him and a friend composed some pretty good music for us. But we felt in this instance that we really kind of wanted to focus that even though Keith looks like a friendly guy, he's got his best friend who's around a lot, that he really is alone, and kind of the quiet nature of this particular scene kind of hit that home. At least I think so. Of course, I mean, what if I'm just the director and the writer? What do I know? I don't know what I'm talking about.
I don't know what to say.
I was proud about how well Dan did. I mean,
Yeah,
he nailed this.
Yeah, Dan is somebody who has pretty much zero acting.
No, I don't think that's true. I'm fairly sure he's got some theater background, but
Okay.
but not like Michael, who's clocked about 700 million hours on the.
Yeah, Michael makes his career off stage. He wants to get back into it again after his wife finishes school.
Yeah.
But this scene right here, Dan was nervous about because he had a full monologue. This was basically his largest monologue of the piece.
And he nailed it.
Yeah, it was like one take, one or two takes.
We shot it, I think, twice, and unfortunately we didn't go one line further, which we needed to. And again, as somebody who's putting together a film, you really should consider where the cuts are going to be. And in this case, we didn't. But yeah, we put this together, this scene, and we were concerned that it was just going to go on and on. He's sitting here talking about work. Why is he talking about work? Why is he talking and nobody else is saying anything else? We wanted him to kind of build this. I don't even know how really he's talking about his day.
Carrie avoids confrontation, and it's like she brings a question to him that she wants a point blank answer, and he does everything he can to get out of it.
And in this case, it's just to talk about his day. And the reason we did that is so that when his wife comes in, he talks about the same thing. And the idea is to show the difference in how he treats, Lorna and how he treats his wife, and respectively how they respond. And in this case, both women are giving him such a cold shoulder that it's sort of a hopeless situation for him.
But Carrie's also kind of a selfish character as well. It's a situation that he's put himself into almost to be like, oh, look at me. And he even calls him out on it at one point where he's like, yo, yes, I did this to myself. And he's like, yeah, you did.
Yeah. You brought it upon yourself.
So
I'm
I've
sorry for
I've always Brian originally brought me the script, and I've loved the character of Keat from the beginning. His interaction, the way he treats people, it's always another layer for him.
Lorna.
Yeah, and we wanted to be able to contrast it with a best friend, and we really felt that Dan brought that to life. I mean, he definitely really kind of.
Oh, you drink that apple juice.
Oh yeah, you, watch it burn as it goes down. I love this. Oh man,
Yeah.
that's how I drink apple juice. Now there was a scene here that was cut where he looks down and you see a picture of his wife, and then boom, the door opens up and she comes in. But in post production, we wanted to kind of slowly fade out as if he were kind of pulling away from the situation. Lorna is hung up. He's looking hopelessly at his picture. How the hell am I going to get out of this? And fade down.
And then we throw in the left hook that.
And then bam, here comes the wife. So.
Yeah.
Amy did a great job too. She was she actually only came in for one day of shooting out to Dan's place, and we shot all of her off-camera stuff. We shot her scene here, and then we did the breakup or the divorce scene or whatever. And kudos to her. She just sat down, and it was like okay, we're gonna shoot this scene now. We need you to look sad. We need you to look devastated, and like she started crying. Like she did it very well, very good job. And since we cut the audio with that, I was able to kind of give verbal directions as to what she was needing to do, and it was she just pulled it off right here. That was just my own personal jab at Shakespeare.
Yeah, Brian's not as big fan of a Shakespeare, and might come through a little bit here.
My mother, she got her master's in British literature, and who am I to say that British literature is uninteresting or anything like that? But I always felt in all of my courses that people canonized Shakespeare way more than was necessary, especially considering all the other writers that had done pretty much, if not well beyond, the exact same thing. And it just seems like, anyway, technically speaking, here, this is different than the first classroom scene, as pretty much everything is shot handheld, because we wanted to be able to visually discern between the 2 or 3 or 4 classroom scenes and give each one something special. In this case, it just happened to be handheld.
Yeah, this was also one of the nights we were running behind too, and Brian was stressing out. And
Was this the night that we turned on the light and it blew on us?
Yeah.
Kudos there to Columbia Access Television 3, who, without their help, without their equipment that they allowed us to rent out from them, lighting would have just been a nightmare. But we got there. People were in a rush. I think it was getting ready to storm outside, and we wanted to get through the scene as quickly as possible so that people could get. I think we shot it right before a midterm or something. And we set up the scene, we set up our equipment, we flipped the switch for the light, and it just blew.
Yeah.
And we were just like, oh, you gotta be.
That happened to us twice.
It happened to us twice.
And the Cat 3 started giving us dirty looks at the end.
Well, and I don't blame them. I mean, but it was just like unreal bad luck. And it was just like, always plan for something to go wrong. And, we were able to go back up there and get another light bulb from them. We offered to pay for one, and we did. And it turned out really well, we think.
I remember Brian and I sitting in the studio, if you will, a.k.a. Brian's room.
Yeah.
And we had written the first episode. For those who don't know, we originally wrote this as a mini-series.
Yeah, it was a 5-part miniseries.
Well, it was supposed to be larger than that, then we cut it down to a 5-part miniseries.
What was it supposed to be, like 12?
12
parts? Yeah, right.
And then we
Whose
cut it.
crazy idea was that? God, all before I got married. Yeah, that's another little thing. It was like December of 2008. I had just gotten engaged like 6 months before, and for some reason I felt I needed a challenge or something. So I was like, I come up to Nathan, let's make a 12-part miniseries in the last 6 months before I get married. And if there's anybody I have to thank enough for that, it's Kathleen, my wife, for allowing me to work on something like this. You know, during all of that planning and all that stress. You know, I was pretty much from February on to May in the evenings. We were shooting almost every night. So you know,
Anybody who's ever worked on a full-length feature knows that it's a second job.
it is a second job,
And we were both pulling 40 hours a week, roughly.
on top of our other jobs
And his marriage.
Yeah, getting ready to get married. So you know, it's just you know, I can't stress enough how much I thank Kathleen for being supportive in that.
I will point out right here, we were talking to some of the improv lines that got switched around. Keat has one coming up here. I noticed, none of us caught it until after we were watching it, but he talks to Branson here, and but the line's supposed to be, that's rain on my parade.
Yeah.
And then he changed it, and he goes, it's raining on my parade. And it had its own little, like,
And he did
accidental magic that happened there.
He did that actually quite a few times. Sometimes it got cut, sometimes it didn't. But they were very good at taking lines. You know, we tried our hardest to make sure that especially the students and the student-to-teacher relationship, that the way that they spoke to each other was as realistic as possible. And all of our actors did an excellent job of improving stuff that may have come off a little robotic, you know.
That's not an author.
Some improv work by Wale. He did some pretty good work there. I like the okay. we got a bunch of laughs there in our test screening right here. Yeah. We've all done that in class, where some pretentious ass professor slaps you down, and you're just like, okay.
What I love is, I don't think it's this class. I think it's a later class, but we did everything we could. Basically, if you want extras to show up, you have to rely on your cast and crew to bring in friends of theirs,
or bribery,
or bribery with pizza. Special thanks to Papa John's Pizza, who supplied pizza for this event, particularly
this particular one. Yeah.
And but we told people, you know, bring your homework, do whatever. We don't want to interfere with your night as much as possible, but we do need extras. And there was one scene where Keat's talking and the camera's going behind him, and I swear somebody's like looking at ESPN or something.
Oh, yeah.
Just like a real class.
Yeah. Yeah. We wanted to integrate, Keat here, his story pretty much follows Dr. Seuss. You know, he's working on his wife's research and all the kids' stories, and it's revealed later that Dr. Seuss plays a pretty big role. He actually, if you listen in, there are several quotes that are integrated into his dialogue, and I believe one's right here where he says,
I like nonsense.
Yeah, wakes up the brain cells. That's right, and that's a quote from Dr. Seuss himself, the great doctor.
I recognize the quote, by the way.
Although I've never actually seen his diploma, but I'm assuming he has it.
He's a medical doctor in craziness. So,
It's from.
it was kind of hard to get Michael to tell him exactly, you know, who his character was based on, where to draw the source material, and you know, the character, you know, that I developed is kind of based on, you know, experiences of my own. Some professors that I've known, is sort of a mix of that, and you know, I think he did a really good job of pulling that together, and then understanding the interest in children's literature. You know, I think
Here's the great screen debut of Jason Christensen.
Yep, excellent walk-on character. Did a great job. Showed up ridiculously early on some Sunday morning.
8 a.m. I think.
Yeah, it was. Well, we got there way early and set up everything, and he showed up and pulled off the server role. Did an excellent job, and
he's helped us a lot with getting the word out for the film, auditions, cast or publicity, stuff like that.
Yeah, he helped with casting. He tried out for a role, and you know, we
That's no surprise.
Jason's one of those people that he's really good. He has a lot of talent, but we just didn't have anything that fit him. And he had a very busy schedule, as he was also on 12th Night, I think.
Yeah, he was.
So we still wanted him to be a part of the project somehow. And we're like, would you like to take a waiter role?
Waiter role, yeah, a single shoot day role, and he was very helpful. Did an excellent job. We actually did when you're putting everything together, you want to do some research, and my family is pretty heavy on the server side, my mother and my brother, and we want to make sure that his lines sounded. So I actually went to where my brother works and listened to him, his opening. I guess you can call it an opening monologue or whatever, and kind of pulled it right from that. So. Yeah, I really like this conversation back and forth here, and I really considered cutting the line of you got to stop it, but I felt it was really important that Keat had this sort of logical side to him, and it's just like
that it overwhelms everything else.
Yeah, it's just like, well, if A equals B, then B equals C, then that's what you got to do. This is the line of logic.
Why? Because you don't really want.
You don't break that. Even though I'm a good friend, we've been roommates for years and whatever, but he's not afraid to tell his best friend that you got to do what you got to do. Which is sort of the theme of the entire film, on both sides. They both tell each other, you got to get over this. You got to do what you got to do.
Then your choice is clear.
So one of the things that kind of developed it happened as we were shooting it that neither one of us actually realized was that there were certain points in life that each character was stuck at. Like, they're well into their 40s or 50s, but they don't necessarily have the maturity level of somebody in their 40s or 50s. And it was kind of interesting to see that develop, that, what was the tagline that you came up with?
Two men in their 50s and their 20s is sort of the theme of the film, and I think they really pulled it off here. Now, we really... I kind of wish I had gotten a closer shot here of the broccoli, and
Thank you.
It goes back to an earlier scene that we had shot and we ended up cutting of his dislike of broccoli and how it's like the slap in the face. What'd you get me? Well, I got you broccoli. Well, so
some things left on the cutting room floor.
I hate this noise of my alarm. Every single time I hear it, I cringe. It's like, oh God, I got to get up and go to work. Oh yeah. So.
I think Michael plays that very well.
Yeah, he looks like he doesn't want to get up and go to work.
He absolutely hates this part right here. Every time he watches it, he's like, I wish there was some way you could make me not take my shirt off.
Digitally enhance the chest. No, and Michael he did everything we asked him to do, and without question. And
we cut the scene where he streaked around naked. But.
Yeah, no. God.
Kidding. We've lost Brian.
I can just imagine. Yeah. Anyway, no, he, we wanted to show Michael in his home by himself. And
one of the things I really liked about last time I watched this, what Michael pulls off really well is a surprise that it's Carrie's wife who's actually called and just looking to get his balance for a second, but by the time he has a couple seconds in, he's right back into Keat mode.
Right back into protection, right back into let's play around, you know. He's like, that's who the character is. He's the guy who wants to constantly test people. He constantly wants to play around with them and have fun, That's the whole idea of being a kid, is that you just go out and you have fun. There's back there on the refrigerator, the articles that I submitted to a newspaper and was published.
I just lied to your wife.
I'm just an angry person.
Slept together.
I've been telling you this for years.
It's not really anger. It's just
frustration.
Like this scene, we had we couldn't find a day to do this, and we finally scheduled a day to do it, and it seemed like every single time we actually had to cancel it because of rain. And then we decided to do it on this particular Saturday, and the wind was just unreal. And we were able to remove most of it. It's still in there, but I think the actors were very good in working with us in our frustration, because we set up everything, and it seemed like it would get quiet, the wind would dull down, and like, okay, ready, go, get it now while the wind isn't blowing, and we'd move 2 inches, and then the wind would pick up, and it's like,
if we had a suggestion, if you ever have an idea of shooting
I
something
developed this
and
master
the option
plan
comes up to shoot
destroy my
outside, don't do
marriage
it unless you
so I could
absolutely
sleep
have
with
to.
another woman.
It's just
Or-
a mess because light constantly changes and the wind's blowing.
You act like you've never
Or
had
invest in some high dollar equipment.
Yeah.
I mean, for me, it's definitely been worth it. I went out and I purchased a Sennheiser 416 P48 microphone, and
bail me out of
all the
jail
difference in
and
the
buy
world.
me a
it
new
is an
car.
enormous difference
I'm asking a
than,
friend
you know,
to
either a
hear me
little,
out.
you know, the little $200 ones, Rode
I lied to my
NTG3 or
wife
something like
until I
that,
get a handle
or,
on
you know,
this
what's
thing.
stock on the camera. And in this instance, this film just could not have happened without this microphone, and it was amazing.
Our friend Rick, who plays Bad Mustache Man earlier, likes to make a joke that the name of the the name of the microphone sounds like a German tank.
A German tank, yeah. Sennheiser 416 P48. This is actually my my office that I work at.
The door was actually locked that day. You can't see it, but Keith actually had to turn a key whenever he got up there.
Yeah. So
You gotta do
many
what you
thanks to
gotta
the
do.
university for letting us do this.
And we're back to the green room.
Now, the interesting thing about this
Relax,
particular scene
you're
is
not in
that
trouble.
the color was just way off for some reason. Now, when you have shots of
How's the
Jim
class
sitting
so
here doing his lines, that's the true color
No
of
one's
the room.
complained, no
This sort
calls
of
from angry
neon
parents,
green. Now,
no
when you
crying
cut
students in my
back,
office, I'm impressed.
I don't know why. It must have been an exposure issue, but the room came off as almost a pale yellow, like an old banana yellow, and we had to go in and digitally change the color of the room.
I also
and you can kind of see
wanted to
it
ask
in the
how you're
pictures
doing with
behind
your
him.
research.
It turned out to match pretty well, but it was just such a downer to go and shoot that and then see that the exposure had caused such a big problem. And word to the wise of those who are producing, if you can avoid it at all costs, don't use the auto functions on your camera. Always use a manual setting so that you know, you can make sure that it matches by itself and it's not going to change on you. Now,
I'm not trying
I want
to be a
to
jerk.
take a minute here to note that
I'm not looking
Michael
for
did
ways
an
to
amazing
make you
job here.
uncomfortable.
This is
I'm
probably
not
one of
trying
my
to put
favorite,
pressure on
like,
no one is.
emotional scenes from Michael. Just his line of, "I don't need any help."
Well, it really shows how damaged the character really is, especially right, you know, when he's trying to avoid,
Grateful that
you know, the conversation visually by trying to pull away from it, and
Gier won't let it go.
Gier won't let it go,
Dr.
with,
McCubbin
rightly so,
touched me about
and
Abby's
That's
I
right,
think
right there.
I think Michael did an excellent
Asked if there was
job
anything
of
he could do to
illustrating how much pain he's still feeling here. You know, years later after his wife's death, he's still very vulnerable. And I think Michael, you know, we sat down and we talked about this scene a little bit and what he really needed to portray, and I think
He gave it to us.
yeah, he gave it.
And then, like, right here, as soon as he sees an easy out, he jumps all over it
Yeah.
grad students
and
interested in teaching
moves the
computer
conversation along.
You're not getting
But it does not leave him, as you'll later see with the dream sequence.
This isn't your ideal situation.
Which was a fun,
Yeah.
fun little night, you know.
We'll get to that one.
Yeah. Now there's an example right there. The color that it was just so hard to fix.
Mm-hmm.
It's just back and forth, back and forth. And, you know, we did the best we could with the tools we have. There's a little fun Easter egg. There's me going in the door there, and then you know, Michael sits down here. Actually, I think this was like the second scene we shot.
And this is actually going to be the second time that both Brian and I are extras.
Yep. Here comes Nathan here on the right, and there's me on the left again coming out the door.
He ran through the
I
building.
ran through the building and came out another door. We just needed a little bit more movement. So another good Alexis scene here with Keith, and this is really one of the hardest scenes in the entire film because it really does show, you know, Ashley's timidness and you know how much she does want to please a professor and show that she really does know what's going on, that she really does care, and we really wanted to build up that Keith, you know,
Sees something in
he
her.
sees something in her, but he's also very stoic. You know, he hasn't warmed up to the class yet, even though, you know, Jared just lectured him and, you know, find a way, make it work. And he comes out here and he's very rigid, you know, and we hope that by the end of the film, you know, he's loosened up a lot and but we did want to show that underneath his cold-hearted bastardness, he does want to see people succeed, and he wants to see
he wants the people to see the potential that he sees in them.
Yeah, and we did that here, I think, with Alexis's character, and she did a very good job. It was really hard because this was like the second or third scene we shot, and we were still trying to set everything up and kind of get into our own little rhythm, and I think she pulled it off very well to help us out. So.
This is one of the things. Sorry to interrupt here, but this is one of the scenes that I actually have to give some credit to my mother, of all people, because I had her read the script, and originally we just had her walk away, and my mom read through the script and be like, "You need to have him give her an A," and we thought about it, and we're like, "That's actually a really good addition to this scene," so we went ahead and added it.
Yeah.
So.
And I think one of my favorite shots in the entire film is coming up here. Is it's the close shot. He writes down what the
there's my
is.
name.
Little Easter egg here. Tony Johnson would be based on Tony Gonzalez. Actually, you can't really see in that shot, but there are several of our favorite football team players down there, the Chiefs. But and then you get Larry Johnson and Tony Gonzalez. But my favorite shot there, the book.
Yeah.
I just really enjoy. I don't know. Visually, I think it came off very strong.
And that page comes back in later during the flashback. So.
Yeah. So I think we need to thank Sarah Stogner there. She was not able to help us as much as we had hoped, but she was the camera operator on that particular shoot. So
Dream sequence. One of the things I do like, I don't know if it's intentional or not, but the alarm clock in the back is unplugged.
I unplugged it.
It was flashing. It just kind of adds to the whole disillusion of everything that's going on.
The disorientation here. Now here's we got this
If
shirt
you're not-
here. Yeah. This is the first introduction we have of Christina. You don't know who she is. She plays Lorna, and you've got Dan there in the black shirt. And we wanted to. We had a lot of fun with this scene. It took us like 15 tries to get it right.
Because we wanted it all to be all one shot.
All one shot, yeah. So you got Dan there with Christina. Swings around, he's not there. And then I think everybody loved Jim's delivery of the "I appreciate your money." It's just. He did an excellent job.
Yeah. What's great about Carrie, though, in the scene, we wish he wore a little bit different shirts.
And there isn't a different shirt.
But he changed his shirt. They're both black, unfortunately, so you can't really tell it immediately. But
they're both bowling shirts. So.
Yeah. And we shot this all in one shot, so whenever the camera turns around, Dan is actually ducked down, and he's changing his shirt as quick as possible.
Really had fun shooting that. We would shoot it and then dump it on the computer and watch the playback to see if we had any boom errors or the audio was off at all. And
I'm trying to remember, what is the document that's actually on the computer there? Something you had worked on, or was
I actually think it's an excerpt from the website's blog, just repeated or something like that.
The more you know.
We this scene right here, where the little flashback, that was actually in the first episode, and when we started going back for the round of edits, kind of felt that we really kind of wanted to introduce her later, and felt that it was a perfect lead-in to his little flashback, and I think it really did improve this particular scene visually. That book there is a 100-year-old children's storybook that my grandmother had, and she gave it to me. And
so a great shot of it too.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that shot. And,
not to toot our own horns, but whatever.
We're gonna toot our own horns. I mean, we're doing an audio commentary. What do you think that is? A fun little thing here is that switching up the comforter to kind of illustrate that we've gone back in time. So it was fun.
Yeah, we had to shoot the scene 2 or 3 times. 3 times.
3 times.
And just so thankful for Meg and Michael here. They do a great job. This is probably the second time that they've met, and it's like very much just, all right, here you are, you're a happily married couple, now start kissing.
Yeah, yeah.
But they're professionals, and they both did it very well, very convincing.
It was very important that this scene illustrate. Childish isn't the right word, but how carefree, yeah, they really are, and how playful they are together. And I think this sort of back and forth, fun conversation about their boss Jeer and their research. I think it really does sort of show that they're intellectual equals and that they're both very similar, very very perfect for each other. And,
perhaps it's just the child in me, but I do enjoy a good old-fashioned masturbation joke as well. So, there's nothing wrong with a little self-pleasure,
self-satisfaction,
or self-satisfaction. That's what it is. Excuse me.
I love that shot. That was a dolly shot that I set up in my room. It was just fun. It was just fun, and I really wanted to make sure that we had this really kind of sweet moment, and it's just horribly interrupted by this
by Michael
or
by Keith
being just absolutely
Keith
filled with despair. Kudos again to our soundtrack guy. Did an excellent job writing some music for us. We had several people working on score for us, and this piece, we made a sample for him to watch and basically said, this is a scene, we're not going to cut it at all. This is how it needs to be. We need you to write some music at the beginning of it, and then we need you to have something playful in the middle, and then revisit that theme at the end there. And I think he did an excellent job. I remember shooting this.
I remember writing this.
Yeah, the funny little Easter egg about this is that I think they're eating like almonds or something.
Yeah, there's not even plates there, I don't think.
Yeah, there was just a handful of like snack mix on a napkin.
We gave them some forks, and there they go.
And it looks like it's like this food right there. I really love what Dan did in this scene, and Amy. One of my biggest things with their storyline is I wanted to show how
awkward,
how not necessarily deceitful, but like how routine and how vague it really is, and how much Carrie really disliked his situation. First thing I have to mention about this is the sheer amount of noodles that Michael consumed. Now we went through 3 things of ramen, and
he attacked him like a beast.
Yeah, and on top of that, he had already had dinner, so it was great, and both of these guys did an excellent job.
Coming up is personally one of Brian's and I's favorite shot of Michael. We wanted to put it in the trailer originally, but we decided against it because we thought it was too good, didn't want to give away too much. But Michael just does a phenomenal job of being Keith here, very much of, you're rambling, I'm eating my noodles, I really don't care too much.
And it's not about him being callous.
No.
It's about him being to the point, He says, well, what is the point? And Carrie says, it doesn't matter. I'm trying to tell you that something's going wrong and you're not paying attention. And Michael's response is, all right, let's examine this for what it really is, all right? I'm not going to take any more of this.
You're interrupting my noodles.
And I think they both did an excellent job, and I just love the line where, can you be any more callous?
Yeah, this right here.
I can try.
This shot right here is the one we're talking about. This is our favorite shot. Just, I can try. I laugh every time I see that.
They did an excellent job. So, and, I think the despair of 50-year-old men trying to figure out their lives. I think
50-year-old men in their 20s.
50-year-old men in their 20s. Those women.
The truth is,
tomorrow can be just
as
different
it's
as 10
just-
years from now. And
That's what happens, I guess.
every day
I don't know.
by trying
I'm not
to
50
convince
yet, so
ourselves that
I
it's not
really
the
couldn't
case.
comment on the
Things don't
validity
change.
of that statement.
Mhm.
I'm happily married, so.
Mhm.
And this shit's gotta
I'm
change.
not married, but
He's happy nevertheless.
I'm happy nevertheless. I always try to be happy.
Yes.
Happy-go-lucky. I have to be the happy one. Brian over here is the pessimistic one. Brian would call me, "Oh, so and so's gone wrong on the film." Blah blah blah. I had to be the optimistic one, or else this project would be like about
think-
death.
We decided that it wasn't pessimism; it's realism.
No, you decided it's realism.
That's whatever. I'm right. You're wrong. Shut up. So,
But
yep.
Anyways, this is Keat being very much to the point.
But he's also being a friend.
Yeah.
You know, he's like, he's thought ahead. He knows where everybody stands. You know, he knows what's going to happen, and he wants to give his best friend Carrie here, you know,
An option.
An option. Yeah, somewhere to go.
Mhm.
But really, what he's doing is he's forcing him into action. He's saying, "Here's the key because you're going to need it. Why are you going to need it? Because now that you have the key, you know you're going to do it."
Mhm.
So, now interesting little side note here. This is actually the second classroom scene or cafe scene. We had two, but when we went to the dreaded editing floor, we noticed that basically in both scenes they
Got a little repetitive.
well, they pretty much said the same thing. The only difference between the two is that Wale's character, Jason Klein, becomes more hostile in the second one. And we felt that we needed to move the story along. We needed to really press the fact that Alan here, played by Sheldon, really was disgruntled about his situation and really was going to be the cog in the system here. And I think they did a great
set the
job.
seeds
yes,
for what will come.
and you know, both guys here did an excellent job of their back and forth to kind of set up this sort of animosity between Alan and Dr. Keat, and we really wanted to use this as a means to illustrate that it was coming.
Jason Klein, the character played by Wale here, was a character that when we originally had the brilliant idea of doing a 12-part miniseries, that his character was going to be developed more into
A relationship.
Yeah.
He was supposed to get together with Alexis's character.
but we pretty much cut all of that whenever we decided to do film form, and his character just kind of got, unfortunately, which had to be sacrificed. So we had to cut down on his character. We had to cut down on pretty much all the other side characters. But that's what happens whenever you try to do a 12-part miniseries in 6 months.
Big thanks to Caldy's Coffee, a local coffee shop here that let us shoot. So very, very kind of them to allow us to do that.
They even
especially
turned off their
during
music for 'em.
during business hours. It was very kind of them to allow us to do that.
Shall we tell the Jim story here?
The
stomach?
The stomach. Now, Jim was he this is his first scene that we shot of him, and he showed up pretty nervous, but ready to work. And we had a little moment there where we were having some line issues with both the guys, but that happens. But we had to have him put on his jacket because it was really warm in the room, and obviously you can't see them, but we had a couple of 1,000-watt lights in soft boxes to kind of light this room, and it got really, really hot. And we had to have the jacket on. And plus, this part of the film is supposed to be taking place in late February, early March, and it got really hot. And anyway, so we started filming, and I had my headphones on, and the microphone picks up pretty much everything, and I heard this ridiculously loud gurgling noise. It was his stomach, and he had accidentally skipped dinner, and it was. So we ended up going down the hall into the kitchen and finding some pieces of bread for him to munch on while.
Whose ever bread we stole, we apologize.
Yeah,
We were in
I brought
desperate
some more
times.
bread back, so we replaced it. But it was good fun. We had a great time. And,
What I think this was one of the scenes I was actually absent on. I was in Chicago at the time, so I was unavailable to be here during this scene. But one of the things I really like about the scene whenever I watched it, I didn't even notice it the first time, was he comes in, he gives a speech, the cat in the freaking hat. It's like, oh, who's he's talking about? Blah blah blah. And then Michael lifts up the Alice in Wonderland book, and voila, there's the cat in the hat.
He is the cat in the hat.
Yeah, I thought that was a nice touch. Hopefully, there's no copyright issues with that.
No, big kudos here, big time to a music artist named Lolo, who resides in St. Louis, Missouri. Who we gave her this scene, and Phil Minardi as well was involved in the production of it. And we gave him the scene and said, what had happened beforehand, what was going to happen afterhand. Here's all you get. We need a song, and they were able to take pretty much everything and put this together for us.
We almost expected them to re-edit one of her songs, but they actually wrote a brand new song for us.
And it turned out really well. We were very pleased with the results. I think it complements the scene perfectly.
We actually had one woman at the screening tell us that she wished she would have known this scene was coming, so she could have brought Kleenexes.
Oh yeah, yeah. This scene saw some pretty big edits as well. I don't want to say that it is twice as long, but there was an awful lot of Michael just walking to get to his car. There was a lot of hesitation here by Dan's character, and there's Amy. She did. This is basically where we said, okay, this is what's coming.
Start crying.
Start
please.
crying, please. And she turned it on, and
she had real tears going too.
Yeah.
It was impressive.
There's another shot that I really like, just of the campus. Like I said, it doubles as a botanical garden, and you get these huge trees and this limestone buildings. I really like the way it turned out in this shot particularly, because it sort of sets up this whole, why does he carry the book? What's going on with the book? And this leads into probably one of the most difficult situations that we came up against is how to portray her death accurately, and how to make it not look cheesy. Now, originally in the script, we had them actually make it to the concert that they were going to go to, and that we were going to cut back and forth between them in the concert together and Michael alone there. But we had a little bit of trouble of getting some extras into...
we had about a total of... We launched a huge campus-wide attack, wrote on the sidewalks, handed out flyers, did everything we could, Craigslist, you name it.
We paid for KBIA airtime as well. Big thanks to them.
And we had about 4 people show up.
Yeah, we actually...
It was all friends of ours.
No, there was a concert going on at the same time.
There was a concert the next day.
No, Joan what's his name? I'm not going to remember it.
There was
one person that showed up that was looking for that concert.
It was a concert the next day, and she showed up a day early and just accidentally walked in with their crew.
It was just so funny because Nathan and I were just absolutely destroyed that we had paid for so much advertising for this particular draw, and we only got the cast to show up.
Oh yeah,
it was probably the most demoralizing moment of this entire production. But it allowed us to restructure we restructured the entire sequence to where they go to the office, and it's sort of throwing back to Jir's story about them sitting in their office and talking about these children's stories. And here they are looking at the red book right there with the Cheshire Cat. We wanted to be able to pull that back together, and Michael did a great job of these shots in the car. It's hard to pull it off.
I'd like to take a little bit and talk about how to pull off a car crash with a $0 budget. This scene right here, I hate to ruin some movie magic here, but during the crash scene, what's kind of funny is that I'm actually the one driving both vehicles. That's actually my truck that careens into the side of their car, and I'm actually driving the car at the same time.
Yeah, it's shot on 2 separate occasions. We shot the first reel of the car pulling out and then slamming on its brakes, and then later we shot several times of Nathan driving down the street very quickly, and using keyframes and garbage mats, we were able to remove, the footage be on the other cars so that we could put the two videos together. And
That was actually our third attempt at faking a car crash, and the other two just came off hokey or not
Yeah.
realistic looking enough, so we decided that was the way to go.
we built 8-foot by 4-foot greens, two of them, 8-foot by 4-foot green screens, and tried to do the whole green screen thing, and followed some tutorials. And I mean, we got it to work, but it just looked
Bad.
like, yeah,
No need to beat around the bush. It
Yeah.
looked like they were in front of a green screen.
yeah. That's
So-
really.
So we
This was
did-
a fun scene to
Yeah.
shoot. I think this was Jim's final shoot.
He really started to get the character here, and one thing that we wanted him to do was be more authoritative, and he really came across here. Just enough of your crap. I know you've got problems going on, but you need to do this first.
You
And
need to deal with it.
yeah, which is funny because it's the same thing Keat just got done telling Carrie.
Yeah. I mean, we really wanted to make Keat and Carrie almost identical in that they both run away from their own problems. They're not above telling each other that they need to get up and do something. But when it comes to their own problems, they just sort of run away. So anyway, I think Jim did an amazing job here at the end here, stepping up and showing that, you know, Keat, you're not in charge here. You may think you are, but you know, there are rules that are in place that you need to be following if you want to do this now. You can reach your students in many different ways, but you really need to look at your own life and really get on track here.
And of course, Keat.
And of course, reacts the only way he knows how to react, and he makes a joke. You know, that thing was really good. I don't remember what it was. It was like a scone or something. I think it was a scone.
Yeah, we had that problem with the door. There's a door directly behind Jim where people kept walking in and out, so it would be like, all right, action, and cut.
Yeah.
And we'd have to wait for people to walk by.
Yeah. Big clap here to the Ragtag for allowing us to use their cafe.
The introduction of the lovely Christina playing Laura.
She didn't
Yes,
say much.
did an excellent job. Just this was her first day of shooting, and you know, I wanted her to be nervous. And she was a little bit when we first started shooting. So I tried not to give her a whole lot of instructions. I wanted to see what she was going to do with the character. But I also wanted her to feel like it was something she had to bring to it. I wanted her not to know exactly what was going to happen. And all I told her was, what I want you to do is, I want you to take any sort of nervous feeling you have and illustrate it using your hands on the mug. And you know, I think she did a great job of showing that sort of unsure nervousness in what she's doing with the mug. I know that's such a small detail, but I think visually it works out very well. And she's very picturesque. I think.
Yeah. She has a very, like, old-time look to her.
Classical.
Yeah, classical.
Classical
beauty.
She is. If you could make an atomic bomb of happiness, that is Christina.
I think she'd still be more
She
happy after
had so much energy going into this film and going out of this film,
When it's
and
so
still
funny because
she
the
still
char-
has it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
because the character that she's playing is not so much not Christina. This one's much more subdued, much more me.
Well, and angry. You
Yeah,
know?
and angry.
And Christina is just, you know, she's a great actress and able to take, you know, instruction and say this is who that character is going to be, even though it's so different than myself. I think even, you know, I think Michael even had a comment about that, is that, you know, Dr. Keat was nowhere like him whatsoever, but was able to put the characters together, and I think that all of our actors were able to do that. I don't think any of our real roles were similar to the actors that portrayed them. So I think that turned out really well. But,
Yeah, Christina is an uplifter for sure. Can be like.
It's always made us feel better.
Yeah.
Like, we come into a shoot, we've already had 15 things go wrong before anybody even shows up. She shows up, and it's like, I guess it's all right. I guess it's going to be good.
It's gonna be okay.
It's going to be okay. It's okay, guys. Christina's here.
From now on, Brian's going to be doing his commentary in his creepy old guy voice.
We were very pleased to have all of our great actors together, and they did a wonderful job. I just love watching them on the screen. You know, Dan did a great job.
I think we're losing ourselves here. That's just what happens when we talk for an hour and 5 minutes straight.
I don't think I've ever spoke for an hour and 5 minutes straight before.
Without cursing.
Yes, you are.
Wow, I guess I better swear here before the end of the film, or it's just not going to be me.
His head's going to explode.
Something like that.
I just want to be there.
Anyways, we'll get back to the film that you are currently watching.
Yes. Yeah. No, I think Dan did a very good job of portraying the. I know what the problem is, but I'm just not gonna deal with it.
Yeah.
And that was a very difficult thing for us to do with Dan, because his character
does make a choice, but at the same time he doesn't.
We wanted to make him interesting, but all of his screen time, he's basically him just avoiding conflict, and we were afraid that people weren't going to like his character or weren't going to be able to relate to his character, and I hope that by the end you're on board with him and understand why he's so afraid of this change, and understand that he's written in there to kind of work with Keate's character, or Michael's character, Dr. Keate, and that they're both sort of dealing with this unanswerable situation and that they both sort of help each other out. So this was a third classroom scene that we put together here, where Sheldon does a great job of showing off finally that there's going to be some conflict between the two, and that something's got to start making things better,
and this is also the close up of my girlfriend as the extra student in the background.
Yes.
That's Ashley Hicks.
excellent job.
Our PR, I think we officially named her.
Yes, she was our public relations, and sort of a grip, helped us out with pretty much anything we needed help with. So, production assistant.
Yeah, during the very first meeting, nobody thought to bring a script.
I don't know how that happened. All right, guys, let's cover the script. Does anybody have one?
So we sent Ashley on a run immediately to get as many copies as she could.
I can't believe that happened. That was... We were so nervous because we had never had everybody all together yet, and we wanted to make sure that everybody knew that we were very serious about this production, and we wanted them to know that we were going to take care of them and that we were going to work with them. And we get there, and the first thing happens, we don't have scripts. And it's like, you got to be kidding me. Steven doing his thing. He did a very good job as well. He was another one of those characters that we had much larger plans for. He was the son of the guy that hates Keate. He's the child Branson.
It was also interesting trying to find ways to work Dr. Branson into it, considering we didn't have anybody to play a character named Dr. Branson, so we had to create this menacing character that's never seen. And that's often difficult to do without exposition.
And that's what we did with Christopher. We kind of used the character Christopher to be that looming. All it takes is to piss him off, and he'll go back to the real threat. And anyway, I think Alexis did a great job here, delivering these lines. And I know what it's like to be a losing soccer team that gets pizza. So it's not really encouraging at all. It's depending on where the pizza's from.
It's all about where the pizza's from.
Yeah. So anyway, I think she did a great job. Again, her lines very difficult because it's very seated. She wants to please. She wants to make sure everybody knows that she knows what she's talking about, but she also needs to come off as very timid and the lines unsure of themselves. So I think she did a great job of taking our instruction and putting it together.
We also have Lanita here, who was somebody who auditioned for us, and unfortunately we just didn't have a role for her. So she was still dedicated to the project, showed up every time we needed extras.
Yeah, she was there every time.
Yeah, so we did everything we could to get her screen time. She had a couple extra lines, but for time-wise, we had to chop it down.
Yeah, we were pressing almost 2 hours 10 minutes, and it was just way too long.
Mm-hmm.
So
when you're at that point, you just, if you can nick a line here and a line there, it
and that's,
adds up after
yeah,
time.
that's pretty much what happened. Is we just went through and started pulling lines that didn't necessarily need to be there.
Mhm.
And I think overall it turned out pretty well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah, this is. I think at one point we were originally going to show the poem up on the screen, but
we shot it, but we felt that later in the film Keat vocalizes the poem.
Mhm.
It's Winkin', Blinkin' and Nod. It's actually titled "The Dutch Lullaby" by Eugene Fields, and
the Dutch.
yeah, and we really wanted to kind of lead into it that way, rather than just show the audience. It's got, this film's got a lot of history involved in it, as well as the fiction of the characters, and we wanted to make sure that we wanted the audience to take something away from it, and in this case, comparing Bible stories to the Dutch Lullaby to the Odyssey. What we're trying to do is get the audience to think about these pieces as well as watch the characters think about them, and it's kind of where we were going with that. And I really like the back and forth here between Dr. Keaton and Christopher Branson here. Is that disappointment that Christopher shows in not being able to nail exactly what Keat wants, and that comes kind of into play a little bit later when Christopher is talking to Gier and says that he really does enjoy the class. It's sort of the big twist that we want to throw in. Again, that was the part of the storyline that was supposed to be much larger, that this whole Christopher is going to derail the whole thing, when in fact Christopher is actually the character that ends up saving him.
In fact, I think we actually we actually had ideas. We never wrote anything for if we were to do a much larger piece of Christopher and his father actually having some issues.
Yeah.
But that's one of those things that the project got chopped down.
It happens.
But
it turned out for the best. So this was another fun scene to shoot. I think it was just us two guys and Nathan and I, and this back and forth. I mean, they hit it pretty quickly. We had to shoot several times just to kind of get different shots of them.
I think at one point that we were in a reflection of a window and we didn't catch it until we started shooting.
I remember that the other funny thing that happened was there's a custodian who was buffing the floors two floors down, and the stairways here are all open, so you could hear it, and it was like every single time we started working, he'd turn it on, and then we'd stop, and he would stop. It's like, what, he got a camera or something? Is he watching us do this? What's going on here? Anyway, great acting here by Sheldon and Steve.
I was really happy with Sheldon. Sheldon was one of the few students that showed up, and he read it, and Brian and I just kind of looked at each other and like, we've got our Alan.
Yep.
He nailed a line of that actually ended up getting cut from the film. He had a line of basically he was making some smart ass remark of she said, "You're supposed to be interested," and he's like, "Well, yeah, not interested yet."
Oh yeah,
and he nailed it with just like the right level of sarcasm. And another thing I'd like to touch on is it was actually another line that got cut. There's a little bit of Sheldon can't stand Dr. Keat, but what we originally wanted to show was that in a lot of ways he is like Dr. Keat. He has the same level of sarcasm. At one point, he actually does mention some, like a book is postmodern garbage, pretty much the same lines, but we ended up having to cut that. But it was kind of interesting because it was like a battle of egos almost.
I remember that was in the first cafe scene that we shot. Yeah. It's hard to cut. I mean, it's good thing my wife was around, because when I was going through this and trying to decide what we needed to cut, it was I'd fight for it and say no, we need this, and she'd look at me and I could tell I was an idiot.
Well, I mean, it's something. Whenever it's something that you've worked hard on, and
you don't want to see it go.
Yeah.
You don't want to see it go. But that's what the DVD extras are for. So it's not really gone.
That, and you can hear our lovely voice.
Yeah. this was another fun scene to shoot.
It might be a different form of teaching.
It was
I can certainly see how it might
these guys worked off each other very well, and you know the lines were pretty long for them to do, and basically we went through it a few times and it just wasn't clicking right, and so we stopped it. We sat down with both these guys here, and we basically said, all right, here's what needs to be said. Just say it. And we wanted them to, you know, kind of play off each other, and they did. And you know, Steven does a good job of sliding the insult there, and Sheldon not quite sure how to react, but doesn't catch on, you know. And that's not to imply that Sheldon's character isn't sharp enough. It's just that you know,
It's not the place.
yeah. The other thing we were concerned about is that, you know, we're back in that lime green room. Everybody is gonna know that it's Gier's office. But I think we were able to pull it off to where
During
you know,
the screening, we actually had a couple gasps.
yeah, and that was a great moment for us because we were sure that there was just no way that this little trick was gonna work, and even if it didn't work for you, it worked for somebody else.
So we're happy.
So we're happy. Yeah.
We're easy to please.
We
And that's the theater office.
Yep. Thank you very much for allowing us to use your office again. So we swing around here,
Dun,
and
dun, dun.
oh my God, it's Gier. He is a sexy man in that black shirt.
He's back in black, my friend.
Yeah, he is. And Steven showing his true colors. You know, just tricked a guy.
What side is he on? He's like the Snape of Lit.
You just ruined it for me.
Alan's got a
Snape of Lit. I'm gonna go back and recredit him as the Snape of Lit. No, I'm not. That's way too much effort. Yeah. No, I was really glad that we got the students that we did because, you know, as a director, you hate to have to settle, you know, for what you have, and we had 20-some people come in, 25 for the student roles, and we were very lucky to be able to choose. And on top of that, you know, we had a lot of very, very good auditions, and I remember sitting reviewing the tapes with Nathan and going back and forth, watching them again and again, and trying to decide, okay, which one of these guys is going to fit in this spot. And it was a very long process.
2 or 3 for the character of Alexis' character.
Ashley.
Ashley. We had 2 or 3 for Ashley. That was a difficult choice.
Now this scene was hard to shoot. It was hard to shoot because it was long. The actors had quite a bit to say. The lines are fairly loaded, and on top of that, technically it was a little difficult because over Michael's shoulder, that's a pretty easy because obviously there's nothing back there. That's fine. But with Dan sitting up against there in the corner, we didn't have anywhere to put the camera.
And one of the other issues that we also had was we finally put it on the tripod over Dan's shoulder, but we had to have
It was in the
Dan-
sink, yeah.
Yeah, but we also had to have Dan sink down a little bit because no discredit to Michael here, but he's about
He's significantly taller. He's like 6 or 8 inches taller. So
Yeah.
it looked as if
a giant was talking to Michael.
Well, not just that, but it also looked like the camera was looking down at Michael, and we didn't want, you know, it to look like Carrie was lecturing Keith here, because in essence these two characters are lecturing each other, but they're really lecturing themselves. You know, here's Dan saying, you know,
and this is kind of the scene where both of them realize.
well, they both
wait,
realize, yeah.
Wait, I'm doing the same thing you're doing here.
God, there's a piece of pizza that Michael's holding.
From Papa John's?
From
once
Papa
again?
John's. I remember we get the pizza, we start talking about the scene, we go out into the living room to discuss, you know, what's going to take place here, and we come back, and half the pizza's gone.
I was hungry. Leave me alone.
Nathan brought the prop pizza and then ate a portion of it, and then my wife came down and ate a portion of it. And I remember coming in, it's like, you know, if he bites into that piece of pizza, we're not going to have a whole lot to cut away to if we have to do it again. So
From this.
it was just a little funny
From everything.
Easter egg. Who came up with that term?
I really don't know.
SimCity. I remember way back in the day when SimCity first came out by Maxis. they called it an Easter egg. That's as far back as I go.
And that's some extra trivia knowledge for
Yes.
those of you.
All my
If
things
you
are
happen to
all
know,
kids.
please email us.
Yes, if you know mathmissionfilms@gmail.com, I'd like to know the history of using the term Easter egg.
As far as references to movies and video games
Yes.
or books.
It's
I think we did
about
a pretty good job here. Was afraid of how this was going to come off. You know, we wanted Michael to lecture here. We wanted him to show his real frustration with what was going on, but we didn't want to get into a fight. You know, we wanted to show, you know, they're best friends. They're best friends from years back, and we want them to say, all right, you're being a jerk. And
Whenever Michael starts to cross the line, Dan takes it to heart and immediately turns it back on Michael.
yeah, and he you know, they're both pushing the line. They both want to see how far each other will go.
What I love though is it's kind of intense back and forth, and then Michael just completely slips out a Shakespeare quote,
Yeah.
and it just stops everything for a second.
And you know, the unfortunate part about all of this, you know, using the quotes is like, if you don't know that that some of these things are references, it may not come off as funny, which was a gamble. You know, the fair is foul and foul is fair. You know, that's a Shakespeare line, and we wanted to throw it in there because, you know, obviously Michael's character Keith hates Shakespeare, so we thought it'd be funny if he accidentally slipped
a Shakespeare,
especially as an argument tool, and it's just like,
and Dan just busts him
and
on
Dan's
it
just
immediately.
like, yeah, it's like, what? Who are you? What? Anyway, game over. So we had a lot of trouble shooting this particular portion of this scene because we just weren't sure how we wanted him to react. You know, we wanted him hurt, we wanted him vulnerable, but we didn't want to give Carrie the win here. We wanted the FTW for both of them.
Yeah. And well, I think what this scene right here does a really good job of setting up is he finally comes to admit to somebody else that he's having issues with this project of his wife because he's afraid it's not going to be good enough for her. And he begins to wonder if it's even the right thing to do. But what's interesting is later, whenever Alan confronts him about it, he talks about it with such passion, what was originally Abigail's project has become Keith's project, and it allows him to finish it.
Yeah. Before we get to the hotel scene here, I just wanted to say something pretty awesome. Back in that third classroom scene when we did the tests, I wanted to give a little kudos here to Sheldon. Everybody got their test packet, and most of them actually wrote stuff inside of them. Sheldon drew almost a perfect copy of Trogdor. Yeah, I mean, it looked like he had traced it somehow. Anyway,
For all those non-nerds out there, you
Yeah.
should look that one up if you get the chance.
Anyway, I really enjoyed this shot. This is the most expensive shot of the film.
We actually rent out.
As we had to rent the hotel, which we decided after we shot this particular scene that we went back later that night and had a small little party in the room because it was like, well, we had to pay for the room. We might as well use it. But I really like the use of the mirrors. If as a filmmaker you get the chance to use mirrors, It's fun.
And I like how Brian here added a page to
This
the
is-
Math Missions page.
This is a real web page. Obviously, the URL is mathmissionfilms.com. Yeah, the little web page there actually had a little bio of Gier. I don't even know. That might still be up there. I have to find that. Thank you very much to Alexis and her roommates for allowing us to shoot in their residence hall. That was Lily. She was an extra that came in, and unfortunately, she had some lines in the fourth classroom scene, but they fell
Fell through the cracks.
But we really want to thank her because she showed up 2 or 3 times when we really needed extras, and we really wanted to have some familiar faces in the classroom from scene to scene outside of the main characters, the 4 major students, and she really helped us out there because she was involved in several of them.
And having her constantly showed up, because a lot of people, what we tried to play off is that there were actually different extras showing up to each classroom. So having her there at least established that, this might actually be the same class.
Yeah. This was a fun scene to shoot. We obviously I mean, we didn't block off anything here. Those are people walking in the back, but you know, to take a
Thankfully,
moment.
we didn't have too much of an issue of people in the back just staring at the camera as they walked by.
Sheldon did, you know, he really stepped up here when he was talking to Alexis about putting this scene together, and he said, you know, after we have our little interaction here, I'm just going to go, and you're going to have to stop me, and I'm not going to stop me. I'm not going to stop myself until you actually stop me. And I think he really did a great job to just...
Bring it out of Alexis. Alexis is new to this. I don't think Alexis has a lot of experience. This is her first film role that we know of.
And she did a great job.
Yeah.
She did a great job. But I think that these two worked extremely well together because, you know, they both played off each other's energy, and Sheldon really forced that energy out of them. So there's a little scene, a little trivia here, before this of Sheldon walking to this particular spot on campus, and you can't really see it in some of these shots, but in that background there's a kind of an archway, and he comes through there, and I was walking backwards with the camera rig, and there's several steps up, and one of the times I didn't quite make it up the stairs, and I flew backwards and got it on film. I think it may be on the blooper reel. I'm pretty sure it's on there. It was another one of those things that just, you know, it had to be cut. It was taking too long. Just, you know, one of the comments we got was just get there, you know, just get to the spot where they are. Yeah, they're in the background is that archway you can barely see, but yeah, this is where, you know, Sheldon said, you've got to stop me. I'm just going to take off. You got to stop me.
And it took a couple tries because Alexis didn't really realize it at first. She'd reached the arm and Sheldon kept going. She didn't know what to do at first, and then the second time he turned around and he's like, you've got to stop me.
And she does an excellent job of showing how pissed off she can really get, and how much energy she can bring into this scene. I love this face right here. It's just like, you don't screw with me.
Yeah.
You have a problem with Dr. Keat, you go talk to him.
Sheldon does a great job of playing an ass in this scene. He just really does, just flying off the handle without thinking.
Yeah. Kudos to both. They did a great job.
Yeah.
I feel like Ron Howard. I watched a DVD commentary of him, and he thanks everybody over and over again. I watched,
and you understand why after you make a film, because
yeah.
there are so many places where this film could be derailed, and it's because of these people. Like Brian and I
mean, we did our
worked
part.
together.
Yeah.
Brian and I worked together originally, came up with the story idea, wrote it, scheduled it, did everything possible that we could, but beyond that, it's in their hands, and they didn't shy away. They saw, they brought everybody in with this project brought their own flavor to the project. So
yeah, this scene saw some edits, not too many, but you know, this is sort of me being, I don't want to say preachy, but I mean, it's the point of Keat. This is the reveal of why Keat does what he does, and
but also at the same time, it kind of brings home the why he should be doing the project. It's something that he does actually care about.
And I really enjoyed researching the stuff that he talks about, and you know, having all those books there, and I really like the back and forth between the two, and I think it really does set up the final sequence of events here, and it you know, it cools. This is pretty much, you know, this is an example of, again, how this was written as a television show, and you know, when it's adapted for film, there seem to be mini climaxes all over the place, especially ending much larger storylines, like with Sheldon's character here is supposed to be very angry at Keat, and that conflict is resolved well before the end of the film. But that's mainly because it was written, again, as a television show, and we had more for them to do.
One of the things I find interesting about the scene, which this is the first major project I've been a part of, I think for Brian too, as a major film, and it just kind of surprises me how, like, once the work starts taking off, once everybody starts adding to it, just the stuff that I begin to notice that, like, I wasn't aware of at the beginning. Like, whenever Sheldon sits down here, he starts talking to Keat, and he says, you know, I want it without sarcasm. There's a very much of a clash between the two. Sheldon treats himself as an equal to Keat, but almost by the end of it, once Keat explains his point, it goes back to a teacher-student relationship, and Sheldon almost becomes more... He's still egotistical, but has more respect and
They're finally on an even.
Treats Keat as a teacher rather than just some.
They've
crazy
found
guy.
their common ground.
Yeah.
I think it's a good way to say it. So I think they did a fun. It was fun. Yeah.
But I would like to randomly throw in here while we've been giving out our congratulations and thank yous. We do have a couple thank yous to go out to people who had a more of obscure influence on the film. That would have to be one to Joss Whedon for creating the Dr. Horrible sing-along blog.
Yes.
Who, while we were writing the script, the soundtrack was playing constantly in the background. So, Joss, if you ever watch this, I'm more than willing to help out in any project that you ever do. And the second being the film Tropic Thunder.
Oh, yes.
Which we had many jokes behind the scenes,
Yeah.
just commentary. If you go to the webpage, you'll see some of the jokes, actually, of Brian and I going back and forth on the
Yeah.
inside jokes from that movie.
Another ridiculous Easter egg here. This is actually where I did some kind of the editing of the film at this particular office, and right there above his monitor there are these two white pieces of paper, and for some reason, I don't know why, but I like to focus on an area while I'm thinking about a particular scene, and one of the pieces of paper says, "This is what inspiration looks like," and then it's blank. And then on the other side it says, "This is what inspiration sounds like," and it's blank. I don't know why, but as a writer, you know, I just kind of visually doze off, and those were the two spots that for some reason I focused on. Anyway, so this scene we got a little bit of criticism on because of the way the camera moves. Now, it's flying around, I mean, constantly. It was fun to shoot because I was like playing pinball with the camera rig, but you know, we really wanted to show that, you know, throughout the film, the cinematography kind of stayed on this sort of steady cam, you know, light hand cam usage, but we wanted to show that there was some rather violent thoughts. This is sort of like the big fight of the film, and we wanted to show that, you know, visually, it's
Things were just deteriorating.
they were falling apart, yeah. And we think, you know, we actually originally had this scene taking place at a lake, and we wanted to use that for, you know, visual aesthetics, and it just wasn't going to work there. It was way too windy that day, and we didn't have any other time to shoot, so we came back to campus, and I think it works really well because, you know, Dan's character is an administrator on campus here, and you know, we really wanted to have something interesting to look at in the background while they were fighting, and you know, it was really great when we started doing this scene. Is, you know, up until this point, there really hadn't been any major fighting. Yeah, I love that.
That's my favorite line of his.
A little bit infantile. Yeah. You know, there hadn't been any major fighting, and you know, we started doing this, and I mean, we shot it several times, of course, but the first time they did it, they hit it. The second time they did it, they hit it. And it was great. It was great because they knew exactly what we were looking for. They knew that they basically had to end their relationship. And we wanted to show that, you know, Dan's character is defensive, but he's defensive for a reason. You know, he
doesn't want to lose it.
Well, he's spent years in this really crappy marriage, and he just doesn't want to risk jumping into something else if it's just going to end up the same way.
Plus, we also had we got really lucky as she's walking away. We did not time this at all. The bell starts ringing in the background.
As soon as we hit cut, we all started laughing because it was like, you've got to be kidding me! That was awesome timing. This is kind of a fun shot. We've got the camera on a dolly here. And we start off in the kitchen, and I dolly back through the hallway into the living room. I really enjoyed working with this $50 dolly. If you're a filmmaker, check out, I'm sure that's somewhere on YouTube, the DIY dolly. Took forever to actually find the roller skate wheels that would work well for it, but it was
it's
$50 worth the investment, 150%. What was that? Works half the time, all the time.
Yeah.
Which is actually pretty true because it occasionally broke down, quote unquote.
50% of the time, it works every time.
Yeah. That's right.
And here we are. We're starting to wrap things up a little bit, starting to tie up some storylines.
This is another instance of television show where some of the storylines were supposed to end, some of them were supposed to continue. Kind of difficult in the editing room when it's structured that way, and then you realize that it's not going to be twice as long and that you really need to wrap things up. And we wanted to show the two guys here
This is more or less the this is more or less the ending for.
Lorna, she's done
Yeah.
at this point.
Yeah, this is the ending for that storyline.
Game over, Lorna.
Yeah, and it's all pretty much Keat from
Yeah.
here on out, which we wanted to get. We wanted the ending to definitely be all focused on Keat
Packing things up.
and his final
His little head tilt, that's fine. Improv.
That was all Michael.
That was not written in there like that, and
That's nice.
that's nice. You know, my life's falling apart. That's nice. You know.
What makes me curious is what he's actually watching on that screen.
Yeah. And I don't actually remember what the title of the book is, but that's an actual title I came up with, and it's something along the lines of children's literature and its impact on sociology and the development of cultural. I don't know what it was. It was something.
I'm already asleep over
It
here.
was something ridiculous.
That's why we didn't focus on it.
Yeah. But it did have a title for those of you who were interested. Here's I think we're coming into another scene where we saw some pretty big cuts. Oh, never mind. It's the classroom scene. We didn't see any big cuts here. Although there is a rather fun Easter egg in this scene.
This one's a little bit more obvious than the others.
We, obviously Michael's character, he had a direct relation with Dr. Seuss and all this children's literature, big into the Cat in the Hat, and we show up for this final classroom scene, and Michael opens up this bag, and he pulls out the most awesome prop ever. It's a Cat in the Hat. And, we originally thought about just being absolutely blatant with it and leaving it on the major the table there that he's sitting on. And I don't know, it was a little too much for us. So what we did is we kind of slid it back there by the projector, and it's kind of our homage to the Cat in the Hat and bringing it all together. It's just another one of those little fun things that you put in there that people only really notice when they listen to an audio commentary.
But yeah, definitely back there. That was one of the things that Michael just brought to us, and we're like, how can we fit this in? We originally had it in part of the flashbacks, I think, and then we decided to add it here instead.
Yeah. Really enjoy the point that he makes here about imagination and cookies and how
But
you're adults now, but you don't have to act like one. And I really like the idea, the message that it sends is that you gotta
do what you gotta do,
and you gotta enjoy it, And here's my little homage to Lewis Carroll and the riddle here: why is a raven like a writing desk? Now there are several more students that commented on what the answer was, but
went a little long. Also, what's really nice too is this is at this point in the story, Keat.
Remember that? Why is a whiting?
Yeah.
Why is it waving like a whiting desk? I told Mike, or Alexis, we wanted her to laugh, and we couldn't get the response we were looking for. So I leaned over to Michael and I say, okay, this time say it
Like Elmer Fudd.
like Elmer Fudd, and he goes, why is a waving like a whiting desk?
But one of the things that's nice, at this point, Keat's officially finished with the research project, and he's actually getting to the point where he's enjoying the class, and almost to the point where you could see him teaching this more in the future. And Michael did a very good job of choosing clothing that kind of
Yeah, I remember that.
that matched. He wanted something. We told Michael, the final scene. He said he had this idea for. He wanted to wear brighter colors, something that
And something loose, something.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't really see it in these shots, but he's actually in
it
shorts.
It
as
just
well.
looks like the weight of the world's been lifted off his shoulders at this point.
Yeah,
And he's enjoying what he's doing.
and that's really the climax of his story, and that's sort of how the grand thing was supposed to end there. And I think overall it came off really, really well.
That's one of the things we wanted to do without it being forced. Of how do you take all this crap and turn it into good, especially when Brian's pessimistic over here.
It turned out very well. I'm very pleased. It's an amazing project. It was amazing to be a part of it and to get to know all these people. It's a pity that perhaps in the future we're not going to be able to work together again. either individually or all together. And it's one of the biggest things that I've enjoyed about this is being able to work with so many people and really kind of getting close to them. And it was really fun. It was really great. It was great to have all my friends work on it and have my wife work on it. And I really liked these shots. I had fun. There's another scene that saw some cuts. That'll be in the special
there's
features.
actually like a 2-minute scene that happens before this that we just had to cut it completely out.
It was really fun to do. It made me dizzy as hell because I got vertigo, and there's a lot of spinning going on in that scene. And test audience didn't react very well to
some of the side stories.
Some of the side stories, yeah. And so that was another one that I really just fought to keep, and it got cut. But
So-
we've got it, and
So
it was.
you never actually hear a Bad Mustache guy speak, but there was at one
He
point
had
lines for him.
He had lines, and he delivered them with precision.
He delivered them as only Rick could.
The greatness of Rick. Again, I stress the visual beauty of the campus. I really enjoyed capturing some of these shots, and
Springtime.
yeah, it's
Love is in the air.
love is in the air. The fun thing about Dan here is, the wardrobe. These guys actually chose their own wardrobes. I would give them an idea of what we were looking for, and Dan
Michael
shows
Ian.
up and he says, "It's the last day. It's the last stuff that needs to be shot. It's the last scene that you're actually going to see my character. I want to dress up. I want to look my finest." And he showed up in a bow tie. That's a real bow tie. He tied that. So
He
did
is
an
a very
excellent job.
talented man.
And this little side note here is that the last line where they're heading out of the room and they're talking about
His new secretary.
That's actually unscripted. They were just supposed to say, it sounds like one of those metaphor things. Actually, that wasn't even scripted. It was just sort of, let's go.
Pretty much from this point on, right here.
Right where he
was-
says, "Don't I always?" That's the end right there. And then they added these lines in,
Which
and it
is-
sounded perfect. And
Which
then,
is great because they actually had a grasp of what their characters were to be able to do this.
and I just love the fact that he's like, "I've got this new secretary."
He's back. to
He's
Kid.
back. He's back. They're back to themselves. So, anyway,
And
fade out.
and there it is.
There's our names.
Well, there's your name.
Oh yes, yeah, that was me. And there you are.
Me, yay. But
So-
anyways, that was the film.
That was the film. We'd like to thank you for spending an hour and 42 minutes.
Hey,
with
you
us.
still haven't sweared.
I haven't. I'll be sure to.
That's a record for you, I think.
Jeez, I don't know what's going on. I'll pick that up by the end here. Doing the credit sequence just puts me in the mode to want to thank as many people as possible. We've got the full cast here of everybody that took part in this, and we can't stress enough how much this came together with their help, and especially the crew. An unspoken hero yet right here is Kelly Kohlmeyer. She was our second assistant director and go-to person for pretty much everything. And we had a bunch of help, and we just want to make sure that everybody knows that we really appreciate everything that they did for us. And this film certainly wouldn't have been possible without their help. Another big shout out here, Josh Rosenfield, a friend of mine out in LA, did some technical advising for me, and very, very happy with his help. So, anyway,
And I think that's
This-
pretty much it.
yeah,
We
my
thank you
throat
again for
hurts.
watching
That
it.
was a bitch to put together.
All right.
Yeah,
All right.
Well-
goodbye.
Well, take care. We'll catch you again until you get bored enough to watch this again. So, yep. So, what do you want to do?
Let's go. Let's go get a boom burger.
Let's get a boon burger. All right.
The